Historic Resources Commission for Wednesday, July 2nd, 2025 to order. Danielle, can you please call the roll?
Chairperson Drews,
Here.
Vice Chair Schmitter,
Here.
Commissioner Block,
Here.
Commissioner Darney, Commissioner Smith, Commissioner Spielda, Commissioner Wright. A quorum is present.
Thank you. Next item is public comment. Is there any public comment on matters concerning the Historic Resources Commission? Yeah, it's after that. Hearing none, I'll move to item 4 for possible action, approval of minutes from May 7th, 2025.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I won't be voting because I wasn't at the last meeting.
Any questions on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And one abstention. Thank you. Next item is, well, first of all, I want to apologize for my watch being really slow today. For some reason, I thought we were at 4:30. We're not. I got it now. Item 5A, HRC-2025-0269 for possible action. Discussion and possible action regarding archaeological and architectural inventory conducted pursuant to the requirements of Section 106 of the National Historic Preservation Act for the Blackstone Ranch project located on the west side of I-580 at the end of Railroad Drive, APN 010-051-44. Heather?
So this item is before the HRC, really for review and comment as a consulting agency. So if you have comments to provide, we can work with you to provide a comment letter. I'll turn it back over to the chair.
Hall from NCE is here to answer any questions.
Hey, Jeremy, you want to sign in or state your name for the record?
Sure. Jeremy Hall, NCE Culture Resources Project Manager for the record.
Lou, do you have some questions?
I have a couple questions. And one sort of off the topic, I'll start with that. Do you know why they decided to name the streets after Jacques Cousteau? In the Blackstone
Please tell me.
Ranch? No, I don't know. That's
Oh,
why I was
I do
asking
not.
you.
I thought you had a joke, Lou.
No. Yeah. It just seemed incongruent, but anyway. I agree, I've read through the architectural report and agree with the findings. The adverse effect of the railroad drive through the pasture seems like a limited amount of disturbance to that resource, but I was wondering if there was a possibility of making it a no adverse effect if you added some stipulations to the plan. For instance, if there was some screening or something like that along the roadway on the west side of the pasture, so the pasture itself would look complete, and then there'd be like a row of trees or something along the road so that you wouldn't immediately see the roadway, just as a suggestion. But I know that would have to also be included or be approved by the landowners, so I don't know if they would approve of that. And it would also take water, so those are some considerations. But anyway, other than that, I would agree with your findings as written in the report.
Michelle?
Michelle Schmitter for the record. I like that, Luann. I was concerned with the barn, which is kind of iconic as you go down the street. It's sitting there, and then there's the nice pasture. So that screen might help with that as well. But I also read it and agree with your findings and the use of your terms this time.
Thank you for the comment.
Any other commission member questions or comments? Let's go with the architectural first since we started discussing it. Go ahead.
I'm Michelle Schmitter for the record. I thought that Luann's comment about the road, the street names, is that something that we could recommend? Makes sense in terms of the history?
Are you talking about just adding that as a piece to the context? Just for some informational, just adding to the informational content of the report?
No, I think since it's the Blackstone Ranch, building or development, it just seems odd that the names of the streets are associated with Jacques Cousteau. There's three names, streets, and they're all named for him. I'm not sure why, but it doesn't seem congruent with the history of the area and the Blackstone Ranch. But it's not something I don't think that we can.
So this is
comment
Heather,
on.
Heather Ferris for the record. So the subdivision as well as the road names are all reviewed by community development and development engineering. Road names are approved. You could provide comment on that, but whether or not they would consider changing those at this point is, I would say, doubtful.
I do understand that they pick a number of road names, but this is a great report where they might consider pulling out some historic names associated with the area. Would you be able to do some sort of variance for if they decide to do that?
So I don't think a variance would be necessary if they selected to change the road names. There's a process for them to go through for that. So based on your comments, they may choose to do that.
Wouldn't,
Yeah,
wouldn't that be
might,
kinda hard?
that might be something we could use as part of the mitigation effort. Just have them change that.
Well,
so
listen-
it's consistent. Go ahead, Jen.
When we look at West Washington, we have Saratoga, Lexington, Richmond, all that stuff has nothing to do with here. What's that? In Washington. I understand Winters Drive. I know somebody that lives over there, for that, but I mean, I don't know. It seems like the property owners can name whatever they want. Yeah, no, I think it's a great suggestion, but
Other developments look to history, so I think it was a great suggestion, and I hope they do take that into consideration.
I just had a question about the area of direct effect, Jeremy. Why doesn't it continue south of Governor's Ditch? It connects to Railroad Drive in the existing development, but that chunk in, it's a parcel number.
So-
0105105-144. Shouldn't that just extend all the way through the lower part of the?
I think there's, so as a caveat, I'm an archaeologist and I had very little to do with the architectural report. I reviewed.
It's actually in both, your
The-
direct APE in both reports shows it stopping at the ditch there and not continuing to Railroad Drive.
Well, it's part of the direct. Okay, so you're getting to a question, a very complicated and long discussion that we are attempting to have with the Army Corps. This is unresolved, and it's stated as a recommendation that there needs to be more guidance on the APE. The way that the Army Corps works is, in my experience, is they rely on professional judgment to create the APE, and you present that, and then they make their arguments. The ability to have that discussion beforehand is has not it's not had a lot of success in my experience. So the way that the Army Corps has viewed this APE is the culvert, and that's it. The culvert that crosses from where the development is proposed, where Railroad Drive extension will cross that culvert or cross that road of Governor's Ditch onto the pasture of the Lampa Ranch district. And from our interpretation of the 2019 ACHP memo, we have developed an APE that considers what is the direct, indirect, what is newly defined as the direct, indirect, and folded in cumulative effects. So that's the reason why you're seeing the direct effect defined the way it is. We're still considering the effects of Railroad Drive as it extends through that through the southern APN, but it's kind of it's addressed separately.
I mean, it just seems to me that it's inconsistent that from the ditch north, we've got a direct APE. And I understand the Corps saying, no, it's just the ditch crossing that we need the permit for. But if we're going all the way to Fifth Street, why aren't we continuing to railroad as the full extent of that Railroad Drive extension? That's
Right.
my
Yeah,
question.
the subdivision, as we've currently have it defined, the subdivision is part of the indirect.
Any other questions or comments on the architectural report? My only comment is, and this applies to archaeological too, I think we'd like to be signatories on any MOA that, or if the commission agrees, I think we'd like to be signatories on any MOA. The other thing is, both the reports have recommendations for potential mitigation. And I kind of think if you included, especially in the architectural, if those were included as recommendations in the report, we could support those and maybe get a no adverse effect by applying those. So you wouldn't have to do an MOA, just a suggestion.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you could, actually, yeah. Yeah, if you were to add the screening to the architectural and put those, let me get the right. I didn't print that page. Oh, there we go. Yeah, the way you address the adverse effect, if you just put those as recommendations and say by following, or pick one and say by following this, there's no adverse effect, then you could probably avoid an MOA. And I think we agree with your finding of effect and would agree that those are appropriate mitigation measures, and you're kind of done with everything.
Okay, that sounds great. I'm curious, Mr. Chair, if and how the Army Corps and SHPO play into that cycle of discussion about mitigation measures and how we would forgo the MOA if there are, in fact, if all parties involved agree that there's an adverse effect, how we get around that.
Within the guidelines, I believe that you can put in measures to mitigate for the adverse effect. If you include those and the SHPO agrees, and the Corps of Engineers would have to agree too. But that it is possible to do that and avoid having to do an MOA.
Okay, so
So you'd be getting into a no adverse effect in that case.
okay, got it, understood. So you embed it as part of the report and it's agreed upon by all concurring parties,
Right.
and then it's embedded. It's captured within the report rather than going to the next step.
Right.
Okay, that makes sense to me. Thanks.
Yeah, it'd be worth a try anyway. Any comments on the archaeological report? Yeah, I think the same comments for architecture apply to that. If you could get away from the MOA, it might be really helpful. Just recommend, I guess with archaeology, you're gonna have, if you want to do treatment, you're gonna have to do a treatment plan, but it'll be interesting. Can you share SHPO comments with Heather when you get them? I'm always, there was a discussion, I think it was an HPA seminar or something, where we met with Reno and some of the other CLGs. And doing these 106 reviews is really confusing because nobody's really sure what we're supposed to be doing. SHPO hasn't given us much guidance. And it'd be interesting to see what their take is so that maybe we could support them better or things like that. So if you could share that, that'd be great.
Yep. Well, I view you guys as partners in this because what I'm expecting to happen with this project is it was submitted concurrently to you guys as well as the Army Corps. My assumption is that they're gonna view it in the small lens, and they will provide those comments. My hope as the lead federal agency, they will be responsible for contacting the Washoe, because at this point, the Washoe have not been contacted about this project. And that they will become a formal interested party that will have a say in the direction forward. But I don't know at what point it's going to get to SHPO. Following this process out the way it goes, it could be months. Army Corps is not traditionally tied to the 30-day turnaround that most other agencies are.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other questions? Any public comment on this item? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
So I move to, let's see, where's that? To accept the reports and recommendations for effect on the Blackstone Ranch project located at west side of I-580 at the end of Railroad Drive. Assessor's parcel number APN 010-051-44 as proposed in the report for the Section 106 compliance with the 404 permit from the Corps of Engineers for the Clean Water Act. And as written by and prepared by NCE Engineering and Environmental Services.
The motion, do I have a second?
I second the motion.
Motion and a second. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Jeremy. Good work.
Thank you guys for your time.
Next item is 5B, HRC 2025-0241 for possible action, discussion and possible action regarding a request from Lauren Morgan, applicant, to 1, clean, repair, and paint the exterior of the home and replace any wood or brick in need of replacement. 2, replace existing windows. 3, beautify the landscaping. 4, use the home as a place to host rent out for small events and occasional short-term rental when not in use. And 5, convert the existing garage located on the northernmost parcel with assessor's parcel number 003-236-03 into a duplex on 2 parcels, zoned residential office located at 402 West Robinson Street, APN 003-23603 and 003-23604. Heather.
Thank you. Heather Ferris for the record. The subject property is located on 2 parcels on the west side of North Division Street. between West Caroline and West Robinson. The main house, known as the Cabell House, is located on the southernmost parcel. It was built in 1907 and is a composition of classical revival, shingle, and colonial revival styles. The garage was constructed in 1969 and is located on the northernmost parcel. The applicant is seeking approval to clean and repair and paint the home, the exterior of the home, including replacing any wood or brick that may be in need of replacement, replacing the windows, landscaping, and conversion of the existing garage into a duplex. With regard to the maintenance of the exterior, staff is able to find consistency with the guidelines as the applicant is proposing to clean and retain existing siding and exterior trim. Should replacement of portions of the exterior be determined to be required, the applicant proposes to replace with matching materials. The applicant is proposing to replace all windows with wood-framed aluminum-clad windows to match the existing design. Aluminum-clad windows are not appropriate in this application based on the guidelines. Therefore, staff is recommending approval of the replacement windows subject to a condition of approval requiring the frames to be wood without the aluminum cladding and requiring the existing trim to be reused or replicated. The HRC also, as you know, reviews modifications to the landscaping. The applicant has indicated that they would like to improve their landscaping, but has not provided a specific landscape plan. They have indicated no mature trees would be removed, but they're unsure as to what existing landscaping would be removed or preserved. They've provided a couple of conceptual ideas with these photos, and they include a mix of trees, shrubs, and lawns. However, without a full understanding of the landscaping plan, staff is recommending the HRC defer the decision related to landscaping until such a time as the applicant has provided a full plan for review and approval. At that time, the applicant can submit a new application for the commission's consideration. Additionally, depending on the extent of the landscape plan, it could be considered by the chair for administrative review. The applicant has also included a request to allow to host or rent out the house for small events and occasional short-term rentals. I'm bringing this up mostly just for the applicant's knowledge. Such a use is a function of the zoning code, which may be allowed with a special use permit for a bed and breakfast. That's really, at this point, the only way the code would allow for these types of uses. However, HRC does not have authority to approve such a use. Therefore, staff recommends the applicant consider whether they wish to pursue a special use permit for a bed and breakfast. If so, it's recommended the applicant first apply for a major project review before applying for a special use permit. And for the purposes of HRC, there is no recommended action regarding this portion of the request. Finally, the applicant is proposing to convert the existing garage located on the northernmost parcel into a duplex. The garage was constructed in 1969 and is approximately 1,040 square feet with a masonry veneer. The garage is a non-contributing building. Staff reviewed the request against the guidelines and is recommending approval. I would note, I also have a minor change to the recommended motion that's in the staff report, just to make it clear that any decision relating to the landscaping would have to be deferred until additional information is provided. I'm available for questions, and the applicant is also here.
Commission members, questions?
I'll start rambling on.
Okay.
I'm just excited that somebody's coming in and finally going to do something to the property and save that corner. You know, and I stopped by on the way down here, and the guy in the wheelchair beat everybody else here, just saying. But I talked to Lorene, and you know, there was some discussion about maybe taking out that brick wall that faces Caroline Street and having the entrances over on that side where the driveway wouldn't be communal use and stuff. And there's a whole lot of things up in the air, but I think the basic design of the little apartment building isn't anything that's going to be less than harmonious with the neighborhood. You've got the old dental office that was to the east, and there's another, I think, duplex on the other corner, but right now we just have a brick wall with bushes, and it backs up to the old GI Consultants building, which that front part, I think, is one of the oldest houses left, that very front part. But, you know, and looking at this, if they put it to the other side, there's, you know, those apartments are probably gonna be single person with one car. It'd have 2 parking spaces for each spot, which is up to planning. But I think it would be, what they've drawn here in concept would be a much better use of what that garage is looking like now. And I'm against replacing the windows, as you all know.
Heather, can you pull up the other shot that shows what the wall looks like? And
The existing,
there we go. Do we know the age of that wall? About right.
That'd be my guess. Lorraine, I have one question. Yeah, in your application, you say pressure wash, restore, repair, paint the exterior. Be really careful with the pressure washing. You can destroy materials really easy with that. So the more gentle you can be, the better off you're going to be doing that. You may end up, those shingles up on the top floor will probably get blown off if you pressure wash them. So you might use wire brush and try to do something a little less, or with less potential for destruction when you do something like that. And we have no purview over paint colors or anything like that, but so you're on your own. I probably get more comments about the condition of this place than any other property in the district. So it's really nice to see you coming up and putting some work and effort into it. And as Heather said, if, you know, for landscaping, things like that, we could do this incrementally. A lot of it, if you follow our standards and meet the guidelines, we could do it administratively. So you won't have to keep coming before us with. You need to introduce
Can you,
yourself further.
can you hear me? This is, my name's Lorene Morgan, and my parents bought the house, I believe, from the Manukians, and they both since have passed away, so it has fallen into my jurisdiction to get it back together. So I probably owe everybody here, plus the city, an apology for letting it get to the point that it is. Because you live here, so I know you hear more than I do, but I hear enough. And right now I live in Southern California, so I'm sure you guys must get an earful. But I know it's one of the great corners in the city, and I know it needs to be put back up to snuff how it used to look. So that is the plan.
Any other commission member questions, comments?
Do we want to take the pieces and separate them for discussion? Sure. Okay. I do want to say that when he says no pressure wash, basically you can just use what comes out of the hose. That's kind of what we're looking for. Nothing stronger than that.
Okay.
Yeah. So you understand the stream.
Yes, I knew sandblasting would be a problem, but I thought pressure washing might be the middle ground.
No.
Okay.
Yeah, sometimes pressure washing can be almost the same as sandblasting. If you have,
Okay.
some people get really aggressive with it and think they're doing a really great job by getting rid of all the wood that's on the building.
Yeah.
So,
Why don't we just get to the windows? We, I know it's number two, but I know that it'll be the major discussion. And I'd like to start by saying, I've looked at these windows, looked at them on the house. The upper ones, somebody replaced a while ago, are in aluminum. I would just like to point out, because this, windows and fences seem to be our main bones of contention. The windows requested are the same windows that this board allowed Dick Whipley to use on his office on Curry Street, and the same window that we denied the lady to use across the street from Dick's office. I just want to make sure, so there's no precedent here. And I think that's the key that I want to bring about. You know, we've gone both ways on the identical window, and that's, again, what we have in front of us.
So to be fair, we try to maintain and preserve as much as we can of the historic buildings. And historic windows are often one of the most character-defining features of a historic building. And so we're always in a quandary because they wear out, they get deteriorated in your case, and things like that. So there's that fine line between just saying replace all of them and wanting to save as much as we can. So that's our dilemma, and we go round and round every single time we're faced with this. We would like you to save as many as you can, as much as you can, as much as the trim as you can, but some contractors who come in and do this work are just wanting to do everything without any consideration of what the historic materials are and how valuable they are. That's where we're coming from.
And when I went by today, a lot of the windows do have aluminum storm windows over them. And, you know, it's mostly stuck paint. I mean, we know how easy they get stuck. But with the advent of central air and heat, is it necessary to open all your windows and all that stuff? And so windows are pretty darn expensive. And looking up renewal by Anderson, those are more expensive than Anderson windows, which is amazing to me. But I think that if they want to open some or have somebody take a look at them, some of them on the top floor where her dad was, where the air conditioning unit's sticking out, yeah, it needs paint and stuff like that, and that's probably going to need a lot of work there. But I think most of them are fairly well protected, you know, and if, you know, just as a cost-saving device, if they don't need to be opened or closed with central air, you can do stuff on the inside, and, you know, I think they can be saved. And they all have lamb's tongues, and kitty corner from them where the replacement windows were put in, they did kind of imitate a lamb's tongue on there. It looks, it's an imitation. It doesn't necessarily look like it was anything that would have been put on there originally. But, you know, I think when in our purview, it says the last resort is replacing windows. And when we're talking paint, glazing putty, and unsticking them or replacing sash cords, I think that's very doable. And yes, there's, you know, you look at the Bliss Mansion, those are all vinyl windows. And when you get up close, even Steve and Cindy say, look what a horrible job that they did. You can't see it from the street, but it looks horrible when you're there. So, I mean, it's between a rock and a hard place. We're trying to say save it at all costs. And people come in and say, well, I can't do anything because I can't use a paintbrush. Yeah, that's kind of where we come from too.
I am not a contractor, nor a painter, but I have done several projects in my short little life. Some of the windows might be able to be saved. I do agree. And obviously, if I can, that would be, I don't know if it's exactly the cheapest, because it's hard to find somebody, whether it's the contractor just wants to blow them out and that's too much trouble, but the ones that say, well, yeah, maybe we can do it, it seems like those are more expensive than the Anderson windows. So it seems like it's harder to find somebody, not that we haven't tried. And if we could save some, then and it would be similar in cost at least, you know, I'm all for that, you know, and if it's, for some of them, if it's just as easy as, you know, cleaning up some paint and unsticking them, and they're still solid, and the integrity of the window is still there, I can see where we would want to do that. But upstairs, they're it is bad news. I mean, the wood, and I'm sure it can be fixed, but there's not even enough, like where you shut the window, it goes, psh. Thank you. Well, there's not even enough wood to get it down, so it's actually, there's not anything sealed there. So it's, the elements, I'm sure, have gotten to it over however many years that, since they've been replaced. But I think if, it's not that we're trying to go the quick route, because I know there's a lot to be done on both projects that's going to take time and take a lot of money. I just think that as long as we're trying to stay within, your requirements, and we're trying to, as much as we can, replace and have it look good, I think that's what we are hoping for. Because we do want to complete the project.
I think one of my concerns with these windows, again, I'm really delighted. I drove by it a couple of weeks ago, and I mentioned, I said, geez, I wish someday they'd try to bring it back. And so I'm really, really happy as you hear from the other end of this, and we sometimes argue about windows, but my concern with this particular one is there are some windows that I would agree are going to be very, very difficult to replace. And then we're going to allow some to be replaced. And to the casual observer, they won't notice the difference. But for those of us that understand the windows and what we're trying to achieve, it's really going to stand out. It's going to look like a missing tooth. And I just am elated that they're going to take on the whole thing. And maybe sometimes we have to look at some compromise. And if we could take an elevation of the house and use all the existing windows, maybe because it looks to me like there's a lot of symmetry in these windows. We could make one facade where, we can take the salvage windows and put them in there and give her the opportunity to maintain those, and then allow the reproductions on an opposing elevation of the building. I think it's going to be hard, but I remember the very first item when I sat on this board a long time ago, across the street from your office. A lady from San Jose had bought those, and she took out some of the steel windows. And she spent 6 months going back and forth to San Jose in this. And you know what she ultimately did? She quit. None of those, half the windows are still vinyl, half of them are still steel. And sometimes I look at the structure. I'd love to see brought back. And if we have to make a compromise to be able to do that and assist, and I've always used the one phrase, if you can't afford to do it, don't own one of these houses, because dollars can't be something that we look at. We're looking at the history of the building. So I'm a little bit caught between two options here. I want to see them bring this back. I want to see that landscaping brought back. And if we can work out something on the windows, I think we should, really consider that carefully. My 2 cents.
Heather, can a couple commission members meet?
On a site tour.
Yeah, go on a site tour and can we kind of help do a triage on those windows and see what looks feasible, and then we could bring this back when we have a better idea of ones that are really shot and things like that. With
So I think,
if it's
and
less than a quorum.
Mihaela can weigh in if I overstep, but I think as long as it's, fewer than a quorum, it would be okay.
Maureen, would you be amenable to that, meeting us there or allowing access? It'd be great if there was a contractor in town who did historic preservation and they were willing to go out and do it, but I can't think of anyone who might. And it's the same with window repair. There's Capital Glass won't touch it because there's lead paint. So unless you're doing it yourself, there's nobody who's going to fix windows. But
If I can make a comment, and I'm going to give Michelle all the credit here in case I get in trouble for saying it. You know, Bill has sold his company, and Bill he's heavily involved in restoration of a house he used to live in. It's at Sutro Tunnel right now. And he's incredibly knowledgeable. We refused to give him any slack on replacing the windows at the bank saloon. And he told me when he was done, he said, they came out great. It's just like a real element of the building now. And I'd be happy to contact Bill on your behalf and set up a meeting for him to come look. And he's great. And he's not looking for a job, but if Bill came in here and said, look, these windows can be salvaged at a moderate cost, or he says, no, they can't, I would believe him. And I'm looking at you, and I don't think you like this conversation.
Oh, no, just no comment as far as whether I like it or not. We're just trying to get the house done. And and I'm not saying this for any other reason. When my parents bought the house, they could afford the house. Now that it is a little bit different, there was this committee, I do not believe, I don't even think it existed back then. As I've looked around the neighborhood and some of the stuff that has gone on, I'm sure you did not approve it. So we are trying to get it all done. And obviously, we want to get the windows done so they can close upstairs, and so that, like, from the street, you can see the upstairs windows, and they're trash. They are very bad. So we want to be able to get those done. I just don't want to be, I want to make sure that I have the budget to do that, because I would hate to, we're going to get the duplex done, we're going to get our little landscaping done, we're not going to pressure wash, we're going to hose wash down all the brick and to be able to get that done. And I would just hate to be kind of left in the spot, I guess we aren't going to get the windows done now. I just look at that going, and I'm not saying I don't really know what the quote would be. I've just talked to a couple people, and it seems like redoing was probably longer. That's probably why some people don't like to do it, but I think they like to be compensated for the time that they do that very, very well. So it's not that I don't like the conversation. I'm just kind of going, okay, well, my brain went, okay, well, whatever that means as far as the window goes, then I just have to go, okay, I got to put that in priority as far as the budget goes. And the time frame. Yes, and the time frame.
One added thing is that if you had a couple people from the committee go and look at the windows, they might be able to give you an idea of how many windows you could save and that you could take out of the replacement fund. And maybe they wouldn't even need much for for repairs and things like that. So it might save you in the long run if you had that kind of eye for it right from the get-go, rather than saying replace everything if you don't have to. And then to Don's point, it might be that the facade could be, the front of the building those windows could be maintained or salvaged from another side of the house doesn't get as much weather, maybe has better windows that you could put in there. And then again, you could save money by not having to replace all of them. So just something to consider. And Michelle and Mike are very good at identifying windows that could be reused or salvaged and which ones cannot be. So
I really like your idea of bringing Bill Miles into it, because he was the first person I thought of too, except I'm not sure how involved he wants to get. But,
Ms. Moore, if she would allow that.
yeah.
No, if you would get if I can get his contact information, or you can give him my contact information, for sure I would want to talk with him. Sounds like his opinion is probably rated more than mine on windows, and perhaps some of you as well, since he's the guy, right? He said he did a great job, and so for sure, I'm open to talking to him.
He just has he's not the hands-on guy, but he has done some incredible restorations in our area. I was looking at one tonight before I came in, which is a brewery down in Minden, and it just blew me away. And then I went through the bank building in Minden today that he did. He gets it, and he knows the people, and he can give you a great idea on what you can save, and he can give us a good opinion about, hey, this isn't going to work. So I will make sure that you get that contact information, or I'd be happy to contact him on your behalf.
Oh, that would be great. Thank you.
Yeah, and Eureka Opera House is one of his projects too, that in Eureka, Nevada. It's absolutely beautiful. Bill knows what he's doing and knows how to do it. So if we could get Bill to come out and just take a look and give us an idea, it'd make us a whole lot more comfortable about saying, yeah, let's go this route. And it should save you money too.
I like to say, I don't care if he makes us comfortable, to be quite honest. I want you to be comfortable. Because when you come here and you're trying to do something like this, you're going, oh my God, they just added $50,000 to my remodel and I only had $45,000. That type of thing.
Oh, yes.
He'll give you a comfort level that I think you will appreciate.
Oh, definitely, because I would need, that just puts another layer of, okay, am I going to be able to afford those windows, or are we not going to have new windows? It's obviously, it's like one or the other. You have so much money. We would like to get it fixed in a timely manner. And obviously, that has not been my strong suit. But I'm fully committed as far as getting it done, but probably like most other people, in my budget.
Any more discussion on windows? So you'd be amenable to, if we don't approve windows right now, we'll try to get this thing rolling as soon as we can. I'm pretty much available. I can meet with Bill and we could do a walkthrough and maybe give you a better idea what what can be salvaged and repaired for a reasonable cost, what needs to be replaced. And I think then if you bring it back to the board and we've got a consensus that, yeah, there's some real deterioration of rails and sash and stuff on these windows, that they need to be replaced, we can figure out ways to do it and save you money at the same time, so.
And might add, not just the windows, but as we know, that one pillar's leaning over. Bill can probably give you so much information on the whole restoration project. And when Don talks about the brewery in Minden, it was the distillery down there. It's called Minden Mill now. But Bill did all that work on everything and built an infrastructure on it and attached everything, just like the Bank Saloon. And the Bank Saloon was really bad. But I think with that pillar and the shingles on the side and all that stuff, I think Bill's going to be able to give you a lot of great information.
We have had an engineering company come out regarding the foundation of the porch. That's what's happening with that little bit of a shift. I think they do a lot of work in Carson. Model. They came highly recommended from people that I talked to from around here. So they came out. It's in engineering right now to find out what really needs to be done. So. And I've paid them, so there we go. Not that I don't love your suggestion, however.
That brings up another point. I'm a little concerned that we're getting a bunch of repairs done, but we really don't know the extent of them. I mean, if the porch is in bad enough shape that it's got to be torn out and rebuilt, I think that needs to come before us.
They did not say that. They're beyond that. They came out. They know what happened and why it happened. The water sprinklers is right next to the porch, which is not a good thing. So obviously, we're going to have to move that. But when they came out and did all of their testing and whatever, that is not what I've paid for the porch to be redone. Because I'm pretty sure I knew I would have had to have come here first. But all they're doing is yes, getting it, yes, so they can, and so it doesn't happen again, so that, that will permanently, however long permanently is, take that foundation of that corner of the porch and make it secure.
Okay. Is there any, I'm looking at Lorraine's letter of June 8th, and just kind of going through the items here. Is there anything else on the windows that we want to talk about? You want to move on to the garage? Questions or comments?
When we were, Michelle Schmidt for the record, when we were looking at the Curry House and we had some outbuildings, we had requested, based on the date, I know we're saying that it's, yeah, which is historic now, and the date of the survey was 1980, so they wouldn't have looked closely at the garage. So are we all agreed that this garage is not ineligible? I mean, at this time, the garage has been there for many, many years. So it's part of the history of the house. I just want to make sure we're all agreed before we move on to rehabbing the garage into a different building.
Well, it is, and when you're comparing a 1880 structure behind a house that was still on a sandstone foundation, and we're looking at a 1969 slab-on-grade garage that Milton Lorraine threw up, I think that it can continuing, and that's, I don't know if you call that mid-century ranch garage. I don't know how you would call that, but perpetuating the ugly, because that doesn't contribute anything to the neighborhood or the house itself. And I think what they've shown us here, you know, if they do some elements of maybe clapboard siding or board and batten or something like that with a little front porch, I think it looks cute. The metal roof, it's like the Laxalt building. So I'm not concerned about it being historic now because it's 56, 7 years old.
Yeah, I think I'd rather see materials that are compatible with the historic character of the neighborhood used on that building and consider that existing structure a contributing element to the larger site.
It looks like the garages that we documented at the fish hatchery, Luann. Exactly.
I think, though, that with the 1907 house, it doesn't really blend or add much to the feeling of the setting of the house. So it's always been sort of a little tacked on building, it seems like, in that part of the historic nature of the house. So I wouldn't consider it to have to be reappraised to be considered historic just because it's 50 years old now.
Just back to the consistency that Don talks about. I'm okay. We're agreed. Let's talk about the duplex.
No, I think it's I think the duplex is a good plan. I think Jed's right. If we can do something with the fence to make it all blend in better, get a little bit better feel for that, because the fence just really seems to be obtrusive on that site. So, any other comments on the duplex?
I have a comment on the front doors. I think I'd like to see something more simple and not the door with two side lights. It's kind of out of character. I mean, it's in character for the historic district, but it's out of character for this rehabilitation.
So in select, coming back with doors, can that just be an administrative approval? Not that I don't want to come see you all, but
Yeah, I think. as
Time
long-
is of the
as long as
essence.
Yeah, as long as it meets our guidelines, if they're not metal doors or, I can't remember, I think our guidelines just say panel doors and you have to look at them, but as long, Heather can review it, and if it meets our standards and guidelines, we could do that administratively. And I'm assuming the windows will be similar Pella wood windows with, or like you proposed for the house.
yes.
Okay, landscaping, I think we've all agreed that need to bring that plan back, but anything would be better than what we've got. So there's a wide open palette there. Fencing, anybody have ideas on, I think our guidelines allow picket fencing, decorative wire, not chain link, but decorative wire, things like that, not vinyl. And it may be something too where, I don't know, you want to look to us when you get an idea what you'd like for that. I'm not sure that you need fencing around the entire property. You might want to just fence from the house back to the garage or something too, because there's kind of a mishmash of fences in that neighborhood. Some have property line fences, others have no fence in front, so you might want to think
Yeah,
about that and bring it back.
that
to
whole
us.
side of the house, I guess that's the west side. The one triplex has no fencing. The Bliss Bungalow has wooden fencing. So, I mean, definitely, I can come back or come back to you. I'm not even, I don't know, we just really thought we probably need to do something. At least maybe continue what the Bliss Bungalow did, maybe all the way down, like,
Fencing
really not
again-
set in stone on anything regarding fencing.
Fencing again, if it meets our guidelines, if it's
Okay.
a 6-foot redwood, privacy fence, picket fence, something like that, we can approve that administratively too. So when you get into the landscaping and decide what you want to do there, we can bring that back as a separate item and be a little more expeditious. Any other questions or comments about fencing or the project as a whole? I'm just really glad that it's moving. So, is
Yes.
there any public comment on this item? Denny's not here. I'm kind of upset.
Stand in the place of Denny.
For the record, I'm Ellen DeChristopher, and I am Lorraine's neighbor on the North Division side. And I agree that this is wonderful news. Lorraine and I have stayed in contact, so this is not all news to me. And I'm just thankful that she is willing to put in the time and the effort, because it's certainly not easy when you have a historical home. The only concerns that I had are ones that we'll be looking at later, but in our last conversations, I feel very confident that she's going to get the job done, and I'll try to be helpful however I can.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment?
Vince Lopresti, catty corner from her property. So super excited also. I can't wait to see what you're going to do. And also, we're here to help.
Appreciate it.
Anything we can do. So thank you.
I'll remember
for
that.
taking this project on.
Sir.
Thank you, Vince. Is there any other public comment?
Bring your hose when we wash it down.
Yeah. I'm glad your neighbors are involved. That
Yes.
helps a lot. It'll make you feel a lot better too, that you're doing the right thing. Any other questions or comments? I'll entertain a motion. Yeah, we're approving, what are we doing? We're
So
approving,
I think I'll interject here. We're excluding landscaping at this point. We're excluding the short-term rentals, and we're excluding the windows. So if I understood everything correctly, you guys would be approving the duplex, and you would be approving the cleaning and replacement as necessary of the exterior.
yeah. So we're, under one, we're going to approve a cleaning and repair with, no. No, the first thing we're gonna do is approve.
On the duplex, we wanted different doors.
Yeah, that's what we want different on the duplex. But first item was clean and repair, and we want to make sure it's done as gently as possible. We're going to defer replacement of windows, landscaping, and rental is not under our purview. And then we'll approve the duplex with the doors.
Okay, on HRC 2025-0241 for possible action regarding a request from Lorraine Morgan, applicant, to clean, repair, and paint the exterior of the existing home, replace any windows or brick, replace any wood or brick in need of replacement, carefully cleaning the building using light pressure as not to damage any of the wood, shingles, or any of the masonry, and replacing existing windows that have no other means than to be replaced using windows from a different facade of the house so that the Robinson Street and the Division Street side looks contiguous with the original structure, and then to convert the existing garage located on the northmost panel with an assessor parcel number APN 003-23603 into a duplex on two parcels zoned residential office located at 402 West Washington Street, APN 003-236-03 and 003-23604, with the help of a few members of the Historic Resources Commission and possibly Bill Miles to consult to see what can be salvaged and maintained without having to be replaced.
Can I make a request for one change there?
Sure.
I think we could replace Bill Miles, since somebody's spoken to him, with a qualified consultant in
Perfect.
restoration, specifically with windows. I think that would be better than obligating somebody that we haven't even spoken to.
We'll strong arm him. And then to also amend that to the doors on the duplex not having the side-by-side panels that could be administratively approved by our chairman.
Can I ask if we can maybe reduce that motion a bit and set aside the stuff that you guys are gonna take action on at a different time? And really just approve the things that you're
Jed, if you could
approving?
use the proposed motion there kind of as an outline and start with landscape plans and short-term rentals and then go into the items.
It's the one that says proposed motion right here. I move to approve HRC 20, excluding the request. Yeah, that one, right? I move to approve. Okay, perfect, it's in writing too. I move to approve HRC 0241, excluding the request for short-term rental and events based on the findings and subject to the conditions of approval included in the staff report. Carson City Historic Resources Guideline, District Guidelines and consistent with Historic Resources Commission policies. Okay. I move to approve HRC 2025 0241, excluding the conceptual landscape plans and the request for short-term rentals and events based on the findings subject to the conditions and approval of approval included in the staff report, Carson City Historic District Guidelines, and consistent with Historic Resources Commission policies. With the following conditions. With the following conditions of gentle cleaning and restoration of the outside, preparing it for paint, and replace any wood or brick that needs replacement, and replacing only the windows that are thoroughly trashed, and maybe using some windows from other locations. Okay, where do you guys want me to
I
go?
think we're deferring the windows.
Okay, we're deferring the windows.
We're deferring
Okay.
the windows, we're deferring
Okay,
the
so-
landscaping, and
So
we're
we're deferring the
deferring.
landscaping, the windows, so we're talking about just strictly the cleaning of the property for paint and then the duplex, right?
Correct.
And then,
And for clarification, who determines that it's trashed?
we're not talking about windows, I guess, so, okay, we've got the motion to approve, blah, 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 and we're talking about cleaning the outside of the building using light materials, gently cleaning, like the pressure of a garden hose, and then to talk about and converting the garage into a 2-unit duplex with the doors being replanned with admin approval from the chair. Do we have enough there?
I would also like to add, since you're not approving windows, we will remove conditions 5 and 6 from the conditions that are in the staff report, as well as making the additions that Commissioner Block suggested.
It's so amended. Yes, please help.
Yeah, yeah. It's a good thing you didn't write that in pen. Do I have a second on the motion?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Lorene. And we'll work with you on this.
Okay.
It's the
Thank you
commission,
guys
and
very much.
I think everybody wants to see it done, so.
Okay, excellent.
Next item is 5C, HRC 2025-0231 for possible action, discussion and possible action regarding a request by J. Gregory Dam, applicant to demolish a garage on property zoned residential office RO located at 202 South Nevada Street, APN 003-123-02. Heather?
Thank you, Heather Fairskin, for the record. So this property is located at the northwest corner of South Nevada Street and West Second Street. According to the West Side Historic District National Register nomination, the garage was constructed around 1920 and is a contributing building. The house that was on site is gone and has been for some time. In 1998, the city's Historic Architecture Review Committee reviewed and approved a request to demolish this building. However, the building was not demolished within 12 months and the approval is now null and void. In 2021, the property owner applied to demolish this building with the opinion from a licensed general contractor with over 35 years of experience, indicating that he is of the opinion that the structure should be demolished due to its dilapidated state. At that time, staff recommended approval of the demolition. However, the commission asked for additional information about Mr. Edgar's experience, the general contractor, with regard to historic preservation and rehabilitation, and the item was continued but never brought back to the commission. The applicant has once again submitted an application requesting approval to demolish the garage. The application includes photos of the dilapidated structure. Several of them are here, but no additional information beyond that was submitted. We still have Mr. Edgar's 2021 opinion, and I actually recently spoke with him. And he indicated that the structure is in worse condition. He actually won't get on the roof anymore to repair the roof. Anything would have to be done from the inside. So because the building is not secured and increasingly difficult to secure, it has become an attractive nuisance and it's housing vagrants. Based on the current state of the structure and the information submitted previously, coupled with the previous approval from the Historic Architecture Review Committee, staff is recommending the commission approve the demolition consistent with CCMC and subject to the conditions of approval, which are included in the staff report.
Sure.
When Mr. Dam was here, when he didn't come back, I had offered to go look at the site. I took a structural engineer with me, and I would have come back had he come back and recommended this board based on Wayne Reed's observations and mine that it's not an estate that can be repaired and it should come down. I just want to try to make things easier, but I remember going back and doing that with Wayne, and so.
I would also note we did receive late material on this item, so it's been provided to you as well.
I have a question for you, Heather. Since the roof was never repaired 4 years ago and it's blown off, and we talked about that during the commission report, and the door's no longer on it, how does this fall into, or does this, demolition by neglect? Because this poor little thing that Don loves, I know Don loves the shed, but this poor little thing's been neglected for so long. Does that play in? Yeah, my thing was on. So when we looked at this 4 years ago, I'm just curious about where, if demolition by neglect falls into this, because the roof wasn't repaired 4 years ago, which we recommended could be done. The door's off of it again. It was really never kind of mothballed or anything. Is this demolition by neglect, or is this just, that's my question.
You know, I'll just give you the 2 cents because I went back with, there's always neglect when something is virtually abandoned. The owner doesn't live here, and it sat there. And what we noted was the rot that was occurring naturally from moisture in the soil, getting to the wood, you know, not being protected in any way. But that's what's going to happen, unfortunately. And but I don't think it got any worse, in our opinion, from 4 years ago. I would have told you 4 years ago, yeah, it's really, really in bad shape. It's not salvageable. And I love that little old building, but you know, there just comes a point where you've got to be able to move on.
Michelle Schmitter for the record. My feeling when we reviewed it the first time was that it's lost its context, the residence is gone. I mean, we just are looking at another building that's from 1968 that we're letting it be rehab, that we could, you know, we have somewhat, that the residence is still there. I'm fine with it going. It is looking bad, and then we're doing a lot of work down there on that side of town, and I would like to see it removed.
Well, this was a contributing building to the district, so different than the 1969 garage that was not. And because there's no plan for this lot, it's been abandoned. It is neglect, and so I think if the owner had spent any time whatsoever trying to maintain this building, maintain its property, it would not be in the shape that it's in right now. And so I don't have much sympathy for him wanting to tear it down. And so I think it should be, it's probably now too late to repair it, but I think that it's a sad state of affairs that we let a historic building that contributed to the historic district just wither away. And it didn't need to happen. It's a simple building. It's 2x4s and a, wood foundation and metal siding. It's not that tough. There's no plumbing, there's no electricity. It's really not that hard to maintain or close up this building so that, and if the landowner can't control the property or maintain the property and he sells it to somebody else, maybe somebody else would want to rehab it and keep this little building. But it's just, we're not giving it a chance. And so I guess that's the way it's going to go.
As someone who was on the Historic Resources or Architectural Review Committee in 1998, I can attest we did things different back then. One of the things that we started doing back then was not allowing demolition without an application that showed what we were going to replace things with. We didn't want people just taking down buildings because they were in disrepair or it was a nuisance or they didn't want it. We wanted to know what was going to go in its place. When I look at this building, I see the historic character of Carson City. When you go up to Virginia City, you're not looking at high architecture everywhere. You're looking at outbuildings, you're looking at rust. This was part of Carson City. It was considered a contributing element to the historic district. It still is. Tearing it down just removes part of the fabric. Carson City wasn't all great architecture. There were outbuildings and things like that. And to me, that's what this building represents. I understand the issue with transients. When we heard this last time, we suggested that they board up openings and mothball the building to keep transients out. And nothing's happened. We have the same problem. We're coming back with the exact same issues that we had last time. We had a contractor who looked at it. Our code says they have to have experience in historic rehabilitation. We never got that answered. All we're doing is looking at the same issue with nothing changed, and I don't see why we should tear it down just because we waited a few years and we're coming back to try fishing again.
I'd like to clarify, when we went there to look at it structurally, we looked at it more beyond structural. How could we repair it? The tin on the building is so degraded, the nails going into the studs you'll actually, when you pull that apart, the nail won't come out. In many places, the top of the nail will come through the tin. The other thing in the rehabilitation of it, if you wanted to, you'd have to go to the interior, get rid of the wood rotted studs. If you go in there, and also the rafters, you'd have to replace those. And in replacing those, you got to take some of the old stuff out, and that's going to degrade the exterior even more. So it wasn't, could it be rehabilitated? Anything can be rehabilitated. We just had a great example. This could be rehabilitated, and I'm not going to get into cost, but I think in trying to do that, you're going to put so much damage to it that's where you're going to lose the building.
I would like to hear from the people here that are supporting this, but
The applicant is
the applicant.
here, I don't believe.
I am here on behalf of Gregory Dam.
Okay,
He's asked me to be here on his behalf.
Okay, go ahead, Garrett.
You bet. So I can't speak for what happened in 1998 or in 2021. I own the property that's directly across 2nd Street from this property and been there almost a decade. I have a daughter, 11-year-old daughter, and having vagrants come in and out of the building, whether that's by his fault or Mother Nature's fault, whoever's fault that may be, that is what's happening. I had one, there was a couple that was in there, and the police were called on them because the lobbyist came into the building to the next of it, and they called the police on him. I didn't ruffle the feathers, and he accosted me aggressively about calling the police. So just for a pure safety standpoint, I would ask that you don't put me and my daughter in that situation any further. You know, from the shed, I agree with what you guys do. I own an old historical house. The mission that you guys are on, I agree with it, and I support it 10,000%. But this is just an old shed. Jesus wasn't born in it. Nothing great happened here. You know, there's nothing that ties this back other than it has some cool aesthetic, but that roof has blown off and hit my house, has hit cars that are parked in the street. You know, if you got sliced by that, you're definitely getting a tetanus shot. So, you know, I just think it's time for it to come down. Someone who's going to build on that lot, whenever that day comes, and that may be 20 years from now, they're going to come and ask for that shed to be torn down. So, you know, the development of that lot's going to require that anyways. It'd be nice just for the safety of it to have it done today. Thanks.
This was a great, I'm going to quote my neighbor across the way. We share the great neighborhood with a guy that drinks and does drugs and really is losing his mind. And we had security cameras put up, and we've had to call the sheriff's office a number of times. When we talk about vagrants, I didn't see one coming down here from my office. But my neighbor said, because every year code enforcement comes out, you got to clean up the weeds, much like Lorene. I wish he would just try. And there hasn't even been a try here.
Heather, what's the code? What does the code say about nuisance properties? It was in your report somewhere, or may have been in the old minutes.
I think it may have been in the old minutes. So nuisance properties, from a code enforcement standpoint, we would deal with the property owner, work with them to secure the building, work with them to ensure that the property is cleaned up of weeds and all of that. Basically, that process is we reach out, we send them a courtesy letter typically, work with them, give them a certain timeline to get everything accomplished. If they don't accomplish it at that point, then we send them a notice of violation, give them another time frame to get everything accomplished. If they don't get that done, then we record against the property. We give them a notice of intent to record. Then if they don't get it done again, we then record against the property. We can levy fines and lien the property, and ultimately abate it. But getting to the point of abatement is pretty long, and it's not something that Carson City has done frequently.
Yeah, I'm really torn because I appreciate Garrett's comments. And there are ways to keep people out. And I hate to see the sheriff responding to calls for vagrants there. Someone could get hurt on that property, and Mr. Dan is going to get sued because nothing happened. At the same time, I have a real problem with us approving a demolition that's obviously been neglected and is considered a contributing element to the district. I mean, at one point, the Bliss Mansion had the roof off for a year. And if we let that go, we could have been in the same spot where it's falling apart, it's too expensive to repair, and we want to tear it down. And I'm just concerned about the precedent we set by saying, yeah, it's just an old shed, tear it down. Because then anybody could come back and say, yeah, it's an old shed, it's a nuisance, it's going to cost too much to repair it, let's tear it down. We moved, I don't even remember, I think it was on Washington Street, there was a little shack that, what was Chris, the guy at the Railroad Museum who did all the restoration work? Yeah, I can't remember. but he picked it up and moved it out to his place in Dayton. And it was a little shack on a lot that they were just gonna put a little business office on.
Mike,
He took it, moved it, and at least the building was preserved.
that's-
And Don, I looked at this when we had heard it in a few years ago, and I've moved worse buildings than this up to Virginia City, and yeah, you pop nails, you do all kinds of stuff.
Mike,
And-
I totally agree with you on, for the sake of a building, to me, and this is when I'm going to disagree with what you said about, it's just a shack. It's still history, and that's what we're here and we're supposed to look at. When we looked at it, the ability to move it, and I go back to other things that I've sat up here and fought about. I look at this, but I sat at this board and fought for Adele's, and that building came down, didn't it? So that we could put a parking lot in for a gas station, and those offend me. I understand the problem with this, and I also know, because I can go through the district, and people will neglect it because they abandon them. I've worked on some of these houses, they haven't moved forward. I look at this, and I think this is one that I could support the removal of. And not because it's an old shack. I like it, but we gave people a few years ago the opportunity to come and move it. Mr. Dom said he would let somebody take it if they want it. We tried that. I went and looked at it. You can't really pick it up and move it because of the way that it's just kind of stuck on top of the ground. So, boy, I'm not in favor of just getting rid of stuff. We would still have the roundhouse, I think, if this commission was around. But, we got to keep things, it's just not an old shack. It's an old shack that's been neglected to the point that it's now unsafe and can't really be rehabilitated.
Can we record it? Require documentation?
I think we could do that. I don't know how much is salvageable. I see tin and wood, and when I look at what Bill Miles did at the Bank Saloon with old floorboards and stuff from that, there's materials here that could certainly be repurposed. If I remember right, is there an old door or something? I haven't looked at it for a couple of years, but there were
Mr.
elements
Chair.
of it that.
Mr. Chair, if I may, we have a neighbor here who may have a solution that works for you all.
I'll ask for public comment.
Yeah, Darren Berger, for the record. I am an adjacent property owner. I'm going to throw you guys a curveball on all this, and after what Don said, maybe I'm insane. But I'd like to hey, there we go, testing, 1, 2, 3. I'd like to offer to dismantle that structure and migrate it over to my property, which is on the diagonal. It's 100 feet. To your point about the structure, it is a dilapidated thing. My thought is that I would build, a plywood, build a shed structure out of plywood, and I would take this apart, number it, put it back the way it was. So it won't be the same building, but as much as I could preserve, I would, including those front doors that are on it. All the metal panels I would try to preserve. I think I can do that if I build a structure, it's plywood, and I put either tar paper or ice and water shield. So if I got water behind the metal, it would still, it wouldn't deteriorate the main structure. So I think I can do this unless I'm crazy. So my offer is, again, to migrate that over to my property. The caveat problem is I've reached out to planning and zoning this morning. There's a 20-foot setback that came after the good old days when these things were dropped right on the property line. So I think they call it a non-conforming use. And I would like that to be grandfathered over to my property so that I could put it on the property line between, so on the northwest side facing Division Street. Over there, we would have to get our partners, the adjacent property owner, to buy in. And I'm sure it has to go through some process with planning and zoning.
Yeah, so the setbacks, Heather Ferris for the record, the setbacks are not within HRC's purview. That would be something that, sounds like it's a variance, so you would have to prove, and we can talk later about it, but you would have to prove up how you can make the variance findings, which I don't know that you can. But we can talk offline.
Well, so I want to have,
Can we improve the demolition if Mr. Dam allows Mr. Berger to take it apart and the city approves the repurposing? Otherwise, we don't approve the demolition.
It sounds like Mr. Berger has got some other steps, but Gregory's done nothing with this for years. I don't know what another couple months might do. But if Darren could work out what he's doing before we authorize any demolition, because if we authorize the demolition and Darren can't do his thing, it gets torn down. So can we put this off till our next meeting? I mean, that's 2 months away.
Better solution that won't take our next meeting 3 months. If that can be worked out between Mr. Dom and Mr. Berger, then we can have an administrative approval of that, and they could move forward at a much quicker pace. Wouldn't you agree?
So we do not approve demolition unless, though, that's what I would do. We're not going to approve demolishing it unless it's going to get repurposed.
I think we would just defer making the finding on this of the demolition until we hear if there's been an agreement worked out. And then we can always bring it up at another meeting.
Then
Here before, he had said if somebody wants to take it, they can have it. I think that we should give him the ability to reconfirm that gesture. And I think
if I can add, I get what you're saying. It's an impossibility. I want to leverage this board and the significance of that building to land on my property with the precedence that's already on a property line. There are dozen other buildings on the property line. There are countless precedents. This works for me. It's in the code. You have to have a 20-foot setback. It doesn't work for me. I think it will work for me on the property line if this board and planning can work it out, figure it out. I'm willing to take this on and preserve it. I'd like to have this building.
I'd be willing to go in support of that. And you'd mentioned it's a variance, and it goes before 7 people. And I think when we explain the position this board is in, and I'm also going to rely on the fact that we do have a number of buildings that are on a 0 setback, and it's going to create some problems both. And Mr. Berger, if, for the record, you're an architect, so you know what has to happen to the building in order to be on a property line and things like that, right?
Yeah, there's fire separations,
Yeah.
the fire ratings. The other caveat is, frankly, I don't want to spend $2,500 to go through the variance process. The way I perceive what I'm proposing is I'm doing this board a favor, I'm doing Carson City a favor. In return, I'm getting a building out of it. I get that. It's a win-win. I'm doing the property owner a favor, the neighborhood. I don't want to be out of pocket for this.
It seems to me that Mr. Dam might want to pay you to remove the building in about the amount of $2,500.
Yeah. Maybe. Maybe not.
The question of Heather, and I know this is a planning question out of, there's a 20-foot setback from Division Street or all
The rear.
4 sides?
I'd have to look at the code, but I think it's based on the zoning. I'm assuming that's what's triggering the 20-foot setback. What's that?
Our residential office.
Residential
is-
office.
Residence office, but I thought the
Yeah.
20-foot was on the front, 10-foot in the rear, and 5 feet on either side.
I'd have to
Okay.
look at the code. I don't know it all off the top of my
'Cause
head.
No, and again, it's all over the west side. These buildings exist on the property line.
So I don't want to battle that here. I think you guys need to focus on what's before you, and we need to talk offline. I know you
Okay.
emailed me today, and I didn't have,
Well, it's last
time,
minute, that's fine.
so,
No, I understand completely, 100%.
Can we can we deny the demolition unless the building's being moved and then it's out of our hands and we would support a relocation of the building?
I would suggest that we, and I'm going to agree that 3 more months, based on the amount of time that's been here, let's give Heather and Darren and Mr. Dom the opportunity to talk, and we'll bring it back in 3 months. And I think that we put the onus on Mr. Dom if he wants to spend 25. We don't make any motion today except to table this to the next meeting.
I'm good with that.
Except we kind of have a public safety issue at the same time. We have neighbors that are concerned about vagrant use and things like that. I would certainly hope that something can be done to
Can I speak to that?
alleviate that.
Because I am a neighbor. I looked at this building this morning, and he has secured the doors where the doors come off and the window. It doesn't look like people are able to get inside of that from what I noticed this morning. So that's been done, in my opinion. I don't know, maybe you've had a closer look at it, but.
My mind just goes to if the appetite's going to be hopefully to demolish this, whether that's now or whether that's 3 months from now, is there a way that we can do the demolition, number it in a way that the building is down with the hope and idea that we can make that work for Mr. Berger to bring over to his property, and then we're killing 2 birds with 1 stone.
Where does it go?
Yeah, because we can't be assured he'll get the approval, and we may not approve a demolition if he doesn't get the approval.
There's too many unknowns, and taking it down, numbering it, where do we put it? Do we put it in Darren's backyard until he hopefully gets? I was thinking Silver Saddle Ranch, but it's a little too rustic for Silver Saddle Ranch.
I'd like to make a motion.
Is there any other public comment on this item? Go ahead.
The motion that we table this issue until the next meeting to give Mr. Dom the opportunity to work with Mr. Berger and come back with a potential solution to the demolition of this building.
Yeah, I'll work with you.
Okay.
All concerned parties?
No, I'm happy with my motion.
Okay, Heather, is there a way that one of us can, I mean, I know you'll deal with the planning aspect, but would it help to have someone from the commission?
Attend a planning commission meeting?
Well, I'm assuming that if Mr. Berger goes for variance, we would do that. But would it help in the meantime, just talking, I mean,
At this point, I don't think so. I think it's more of a logistics thing for planning and going through the code and seeing how
Yeah,
we
seeing
might
how-
be
seeing
able
how
to
it
make
works.
it work. Yeah.
okay.
That's why my motion is 3 months, so that they have the opportunity to work out all of those little things.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second? Motion and a second. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. So hopefully we can, thank you for stepping up, Darren. I was looking at Silver Saddle and thinking the same thing, but I just can't see it. The corrugated's too rusted for
Yeah,
Silver Saddle.
Yeah, there's a lot of positive, I mean, I benefit from it. I think the owner does too, and the community to preserve the building. It's that setback that we need to get over. Hopefully we can. And I'll take it.
Thank you. Next item is 6, staff reports.
Okay, so our next meeting is scheduled for September 3rd at 4 o'clock. Looks like we will have an agenda item.
What time?
4 o'clock. And at the last meeting, I promised you information on the scavenger hunt. So the 2025 scavenger hunt closed at the end of May. We had 22 entries this year, and the winner was randomly selected from the correct responses, and that was John Chamberlain. That's posted on our website. We received good feedback this year. Several participants told us how much they enjoyed the scavenger hunt every year and look forward to its release. And one participant stated that they really liked the mix of questions this year.
How many correct answers did we get?
That I don't know. I can find out. I'll email you guys.
You didn't grade them?
I didn't.
Commission member reports or comments?
I just have a question for you guys. My neighbor kitty corner to me, the McLaughlins, they named their house the Prang House, something. Some lady named Teresa Dama, D-A-M-M-A, sent them a letter how she's investigating if that's really true or not. And it said, I got thing from McLaughlin's with a letter and that her letter in my mailbox. Did the rest of you receive anything? Because this lady sent me another letter asking me to research it because nobody from the Ghost Walk or the Brewery Arts Center, nobody knows, and she'd have to do a chain of title. So I was just curious. It seems like she's picking on the McLaughlins for some reason, and including me. So that's what I was.
Lucky you.
Yeah. Okay, that was it.
Future agenda items. Any more questions or commission member comments?
You know, I just have kind of a comment on today on the shed. And I kind of mentioned it, Michelle, just briefly just now. I wish we had some teeth so that when we had something like this, we could make and maintain it. But I drive through the historic district and I see some people who have done just marvelous jobs. And I see other ones that,
Don't even.
you know, I wish there was something that we could do. But this is where we get caught in that kind of very obscure land of not having any teeth. So what do? And it's frustrating for me. You know, I don't like seeing that building come down, but I'd sure like to see some of the stuff within the historic district that is being, I'm going to use a word I heard tonight, trashed. And there's nothing we can do, you know, so I guess that's part of the job.
Like,
Okay, you could pass a law that said we had teeth.
like Hope told me a while back, there's no groundswell of people that want to participate in our meetings and do all that stuff. You know, people really wanting to preserve the district. And this year alone, where we see David buying the Posey Bender house and Jeff and Michelle buying that old wreck that Walt had, and I can't wait for Walt to move, and with the lady that came here tonight, it seems like right now there's kind of a resurgence in the district of people that care and they want to do stuff. And I mean, we had 2 other property owners here welcoming that. So that's some good news, finally.
And we do have some teeth. I mean, we've had actually most of the times we've had, had to go before the board. They've sided with us and but Jed's right. I mean, there's people that are concerned. I run it, you know, people who watch public access TV and stuff and recognize me will make comments about the district and how.
Well, I think
what
we're all really
looks-
excited about the lady that came in tonight, that she wants to do something with that. And I just don't want to have like the lady from San Jose that because we wouldn't work with them all. She just left, and now it looks worse than it ever did. And that's one of my examples about it. Just gets in
She kept
disrepair.
fighting us.
Huh?
She kept fighting us and
Oh.
left because she didn't want to do what we were
Oh,
recommending.
I know.
And She
And-
got frustrated and left, so it's,
And my point was not it's that she left and then there was nothing we could do. I mean, there's no grass. It's dirt across the street from the law office, and it's just a bad look. And I wish we didn't have to do that.
Well, we had that bad experience, or that experience with the owner of the Ferris house. And last time when they came in, they're rebuilding the fence, and it's actually wood, and it actually looks like the real deal fence without lights. So at least there's an example of someone that fought us that is coming back to do something better. And when Vivian bought those windows off eBay or whatever she did, and did all that, that was a fight. But at least with the Ferris house, they came back around and are doing some stuff to make it look better.
we every time we do the preservation awards and stuff, the board is totally behind us. The people who get the rewards or awards are really pleased that with the job we do and the fact that they get recognized. So it's not all frustration and negative.
Well, I think the guy that got the award this year, lives that every day.
Yeah, he's. Any future agenda items? Is there any public comment? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Second? Motion and a second. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned.